Hello everyone, welcome to another VWO webinar. My name is Utkarsh Rai and I take up product marketing at VWO. For today's session, I have two product managers with me. You all are familiar with Ashwin.
Hi.
Say hi, Ashwin.
Hello.
And we have another smiling face with us for the webinar, and he's Anshul from the product team. So for today's session, we're discussing about A/B testing reports. We have three phases to cover in this session. First, we'll be discussing about how you read your A/B testing reports, discussing all the jargons which are out there in the reports and everything. And then we'll discuss about how you conduct a successful post-test analysis in terms of what type of segments you put in to slice and dice your data and understand what could be your potential next steps after you get a result from an experiment.
Yep.
And the third and the last bit which we'll be discussing would be around what are the key things which you need to avoid during your post-test analysis so that you don't derail the entire process.
Makes sense.
So before we get started, I just want to quickly run some housekeeping announcements. First is that this session is recorded, so you don't have to worry about making notes or anything. We will share the recording of the session after this webinar. So you can just relax, still listen to the conversation. We're going to be some healthy banter during the session. So yeah, just stay tuned for that. So let's begin. Anshul, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So to start off, let me directly take you to an A/B test, which we ran on VWO.com a little while ago. This A/B test, let's navigate directly into the VWO app so that we can take a look at it there.
Anshul, what was the hypothesis of the test? What were you trying to do?
Right. So in this one, we wanted to increase the number of free trials signups that could have happened from anywhere. So what we did was we highlighted the free trial button on our navigation menu.
Okay. I think it would be great if you can actually show the preview to our users.
Yeah.
Right. Great. So this is how the original navigation options used to look like. We were definitely highlighting request a demo, which is still an option available, and you can use it to book a slot with our sales team and get a free demo of VWO. But what we wanted to focus on was free trial. So we swapped the attention from request a demo and brought it to free trial, and that was the original hypothesis. That was the implementation. And the hypothesis was that it would increase the total number of free trial signups.
All right.
So what actually happened?
Right. So let's jump to the reports. And the final end result of this report is something that you see at the top of this page. Is that the variation that we designed ended up performing better than control. But that's a conclusion, and that has happened. Let's look at how we reached to that conclusion. Okay, so the first, and that is all of that lies in the details here. So the first metric that you need to look at is the expected conversion rate of both the different variations.
Just before we get started here, why we are calling it expected conversion rate when it could be simply called conversion rate? And I think the formula of calculating that is still the same. What's the reason of calling it expected conversion rate?
And another interesting thing is that if you see conversions divided by visitors, if you divide that number, I don't think it comes up to the number there.
That's great.
1.01. So
yeah.
I think you really need to unpack what is expected conversion rate and what does it mean.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that together.
Yeah, awesome.
So if I was taking a look at a set of data which I collected for let's say for my website in the past 1 year, and I wanted to find out what is the conversion rate of my website for past 1 year, I'd go the simple division way.
Right.
I'll simply divide it, and historically I'd find out one simple number. But in this case, we are not going for a historical calculation. We're trying to estimate the conversion rate of the website by that it will be when we make that change, right? So for that, let me use an example.
So we are actually predicting the future.
Yeah, yes. in a way. Right. So we have to give away. So we cannot just simply rely on a division where we just observed values are used to simply arrive at a number, and we actually employ Bayesian statistics to end up with a conversion rate range where we are able to say that, okay, this is the range and I'm 99% sure that my actual conversion rate lies within this. So let me actually use an example here to demonstrate this better. And the example here is coin flips. Let's say you had a coin, a fair coin, like we're not going to make it difficult by making the coin crooked. So I actually have this resource from Brown University, which
kind of simulates, right?
Yeah, this simulates the coin flips, and on the right hand side here, the blue bars demonstrate what is the true probability of the coin
of an outcome
of the coin having heads or tails as an outcome.
All right.
So as we all know that there are only two possible outcomes, and at any given point, the probability of any outcome is 50%.
Right.
And that's what it's shown here. However, if I never knew how many sides did the coin have, and I wanted to find out, that out along with the probability that a probability of the coin returning heads,
getting an outcome. Yeah.
The only way to do that would be to flip a coin.
Right.
And then flip it again, and then flip it again to find out.
It's hard, like figuring out if it's a fair coin or not.
Exactly.
So you'll just keep on flipping and figuring out
what
is and that's what you usually do, right? Like if I have to figure out if a coin is fair or not, flip it probably 100 times, at least intuitively. That's what I would do and see what is the outcome.
Yeah, I pretty much do that with my Spotify playlist. Like, when I hit shuffle, and then every time I listen to it while working out, so I make sure that the next song is not the same song, so that I cannot predict that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So let's go ahead and flip this coin and see what outcome do we get. So this is in heads. And if this is where we stopped our experiment, if this is where we wanted to draw a conclusion, we'll draw that the probability of heads is 100%.
That's insane.
But that's not what we do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we flip the coin again. And here we get a balanced outcome. Let's repeat this process at least 3-4 times. And what you see here is very interesting. I have just flipped the coin 5 times and heads showed up 3 different times.
Right.
Does that mean that the probability of heads is 3 by 5? Is that what the response would be? No, it's not. It's because I'm only limited by the number of times I conducted the experiment.
Right.
So in here, let me go ahead and flip this coin 100 times and see what happens.
Oh, you can do that iteration?
Yes.
Amazing.
And you will see that with that just one iteration, the actual probability, the observed probability comes as close as it can to the actual probability. In this case, matches exactly what it is. But yeah, that's. So
let's flip it another 100 times. Let's see what happens.
Sure.
Ashwin is getting excited.
I like flipping coins. So now this is interesting because most of the times, intuitively you'll think, okay, there were not enough samples.
Yeah.
Right now you've flipped it, let's say about 300, 400 times. And if you were doing this in real life, 400 is a lot.
Yeah.
And at that point of time, if you see, tails is 60%, does that mean my coin is fair or not?
No, it doesn't mean that. So the idea here is to reach the exact number of true probability, you have to flip the coin an unlimited number of times, infinite number of times. And when you do that, you will reach the exact true probability values. But since we cannot do that with the coin or with our tests, we have to call the test when we are at least a certain percentage sure. And that's what in our session later.
So that's why there's a range, like when we say, like in this case, if I'm just estimating, but if you flip it enough times, it would probably lie between 0.45 to 0.55. And the median would probably be 50%. So in real life, it will not be 50-50. It can be what we see. But if it's within the range, we can trust the median. Am I correct in my assessment?
Yeah, you are. So a good way to project this outcome would be to say that we are 99% sure that the probability of heads being the actual outcome lies between 45 and 55%.
Right. So we're actually predicting the future correctly.
And we're estimating the number of iterations we have taken in making that assumption.
Right.
So let's jump back to the VWO report here. And this is where you would see that the expected conversion rate for our test lies between 1.09%, 0.93% to 1.09%. And the most likely value is 1.01%. Let me use a graph, probability density graph, and isolate control here.
So just for our customers, you'll see that these are new graphs.
Yeah.
So I think we haven't introduced a new graph. So we have actually revamped our reports, and there are a lot of simplified numbers that you can actually understand directly. There are new view settings, so you can actually customize the entire reports. And we have introduced two exciting new graphs. One is the conversion rate graph. One is the probability density graph. So Anshul will be walking us through these graphs. But and by the way, these are live on your accounts.
Yeah, you can go check them out as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the probability density curve. What it does is plots the conversion rate and tells you the probability of each point of that conversion rate.
Awesome.
So let me go ahead and hover on this graph so that it brings up the extremities. This is the way in which you can visualize that range.
Right.
The range says the conversion rate of your website lies from 0.93 to 1.09.
Right.
And the most likely value is 1.01. And what it actually means is that the probability of the conversion rate of control being 0.93, there's definitely some probability, but the probability of the conversion rate being 1.01 is way higher.
Right. So the most likely number is 1.01.
Yeah.
But you can still, because we cannot predict the future, you can still have the extreme cases where it could go either ways. But most of the times 1.01.
Yes.
So the graph is telling you one value which you can bet on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you had to simplify it, I would definitely go ahead with 1.01% as my actual conversion rate for control. But if you want it to be 100% correct and you want to deliver that, the extreme points or the range is what you would want to go for.
Right.
All right.
Makes sense.
So as Ashwin mentioned, there's another graph, there's another improvement to date range where you are now allowed to add ranges here. So you can see the evolution of conversion rate range over the duration of the test.
So the range is very interesting,
Yeah.
and I think we need to tie it back to the coin flip.
Right.
We saw, initially 70%, 90%, 100%.
Every 100 iterations.
Right. And then as we kind of learn with more and more iterations, we become more and more sure, and it kind of merges.
Yes.
As you have more samples. And this is exactly what we see.
Yes.
Here, right?
The date range graph, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. And if I highlight this area, you would see that the range that we started with was definitely wider than where we are at. And in the duration of the test, when we collected more visitors and we observed more conversions, our system became more and more sure about a certain range, and it started depicting that. So this evolution tells you how variations, how the conversion rate of variations evolve. And if you plot both the variations on the same graph, it simply gives you a view as to how close or far apart your variations actually are.
This is very interesting. There's a lot of overlap,
and
you'll see that in the reports also.
Right.
So the overlap is basically kind of two variations behaving very, very similarly. We're not able to kind of figure out which one is performing better than the other. Am I correct?
Yeah. So if there's a region of overlap between the conversion rate ranges, it simply says that in that region we're not very sure that which is better.
Right.
And that brings in the uncertainty that's associated with an A/B test. Now, to be able to confidently say that, like in this test, VWO has that variation 1 is better than control, we have to minimize this overlap to a certain extent. And that's where this test has reached, and that's what is being.
And it's also shown, I know I'm jumping the gun here, but if we look at probability to beat baseline, that number is in the 70s, right? 72%.
Yeah.
So because we have overlap, it's not 100%.
It's not 100%. That's correct.
But what is like a safe number to assume that when there is X amount of overlap, or is the X amount of probability to beat is a safe number to maybe bet on that? Like maybe now I can go ahead and maybe implement that variation.
So before I answer that, I'd just like to take a minute just to clarify what the probability to beat baseline number means. Actually, it's something that that might not be 100% understood by everyone. So what this means is, what is the probability that my variation is going to be better than my base variation?
Right.
So what we are trying to say is that if there are 100 occurrences, at least 72% of the times, variation 1 will outshine control.
Right. So let's say in our case, if 100 visitors visit our website in the future, 72 times they may actually click on the free trial button, the new one, as compared to the control.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, the 72% of the times, variation 1 will be better suited than our original variation.
Right. And I see another metric which says probability to be best.
Right. Before I jump there, all of this is specifically for that one goal that we want to optimize, which is to get more and more free trial. Now, probability to be best is just another representation, which is very useful when you have more than one variations. So there can be more than one variations that are doing better than your base variation, but which one of them is the absolute best? That's what that number represents.
So yeah, so I think Utkarsh, we need to think about it as a decision-making tool. So obviously, the first aim is to get something better than control. And that's where probability to be baseline is important. So you want that number to be high. But if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 variations that are beating control.
That was almost my second question.
But there, but amongst those 3 variations, let's say 2 variations are performing very, very similarly. Or if we have to pick one out of those 3 variations, then probably probability to be best would be the metric that we would use.
Right. So think of it: is my variation better than my baseline? And if it is better, then by how much? The answer to the question by how much is given by another metric called improvement, and that's what you're looking at. In this version, 2.53% improvement can be expected over the base variations conversion rate. So yeah, these are the 2 major numbers that I look at when I want to take a decision on the test. What is the probability that my variation is better? What is the chance that my variation is better? And if it is, by how much?
Right.
Another question which I had was, and might be a naive question, just like shun me if that's the case. Can we change the base in comparison? We are trying to maybe relatively analyze the conversion rate.
Absolutely, this happens a lot. In fact, sometimes you are absolutely confident that you do not want to display your baseline to any of the visitors. So let's say you create 4 different variations, but then you end up splitting the traffic only between the other 3 and give 0% to the baseline. In that case, having the base variation as the base for calculations is not useful at all. So you can toggle, make any other variation the base variation. What you need to understand is that that's the variation which we'll use, and all the numbers will be calculated with its respect.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, because sometimes we have this like a gut feeling that we have this hypothesis, we created a variation and we're betting on it, right? And we would want that to win and comparably see that how well the other ones were performing. Right. So maybe we would want to use that. As marketers, we are very sure mostly. So
mostly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the keyword here. So yeah,
just look at the numbers, trust the numbers, and I think that will take you.
So Anshul, there are a lot of other things going on. So obviously the graphs are there. The numbers are there. But I see the segments and the compare mode. When should we go into those? And there's also a date range. So when should we use these things? And how does it help us get more insights?
Also, another follow-up question there is there an order to like which graphs you should see first, so that they just not confuse you too much? Yeah. So
okay. Yeah, sure. No problem. So talking about picking a graph that you should look at first, these are all 3 different ways in which conversion rate is represented. So I think my answer here would be pick one that you prefer the most, and in fact use view settings to pick that one graph that you like and make it as your default graph. Okay. Now talking about what else can we do with the numbers. So when you look at the stats table here and you look at the graph, what you're seeing is an average case. What was the overall performance of the test when everyone was included in it? But obviously there are different kind of visitors that went through your website when you were running the test. There are various kind of segments that can be created by combining a few attributes of these visitors. Some of these segments, you might already have an idea of these because you do your regular analysis.
So like in our case, I know like the US market is pretty important, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to create a segment or put a segment on top of this.
Right. So you can, and you absolutely should. This is one of the things in which you generate insights. If you have an intuition about, and all of this does play a role in making, or in building that intuition about testing. And you want to get there because because you know the business best. You know your business best. There's no one else that knows it better than you do. And if you have an idea about how you should approach a test and how you should do the post-test analysis, you're going to generate so many insights and so many actionables that you're never going to run out of ideas.
Right.
So as you mentioned, the US segment is definitely something that's most important for us. So I would definitely like to see the performance of the test for US versus for everyone else.
Right.
Or let's say geography-wise, US, then Australia, and maybe the Europe region, and then the rest of the world.
So I think it's important to kind of save your segments within VWO reports.
Definitely.
Because the slicing and dicing after you have got your segment saved becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
And that information is critical. Because just imagine, like, we create a version of this. It works great in Australia,
right.
But it tanks in the US.
Exactly. Yeah.
But overall, we have a positive impact. I could get fired if that ever happens.
Actually, one of the examples that we're going to cover later in the segment does talk about this. So yeah,
right.
And that could be another testing idea, right? Like that there is one particular segment which does not work very well with the existing A/B test you're running, so might not just maybe just isolate that that segment and run test on that.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. Right. Yeah. So all of these are insights that you can derive from it, and this should fall into your workflow. You should definitely use segments. There are some. So for your ease, we have already created a list of segments that you can quickly access, and we've given you options to save it so that you or your teammates, even if they are unaware, they can simply navigate to this section and find it there.
So what about, like, obviously, a lot of businesses have their very specific segments that they've created in their CRM systems, or they already exist, in one of the data layers that they have, third-party data layers. So if they want to bring that into VWO and actually, use those segments for slicing and dicing, how should they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we have a feature called custom dimensions, which basically allows you to so what you see right now are standard properties of the visitors. If the visitor is from US, that's one of their characteristics. But let's say if you know that the visitors is either logged in or logged out, and you would like to use that information later, you can tag the visitor with that information. If you know, for example, if you are an e-commerce store, has this visitor purchased on my website ever or not? You can tag the visitor with that.
Like a returning customer or a new customer.
And bring in that context, because context is everything. And you can bring in that context and analyze and slice and dice your reports using that. And I think that works the best when you talk about segmenting your reports, because this context that you're bringing in VWO is something that is very, very important. And that analyzing on the either ways is something that you need. So for sure, you can do that. You should do that, and you should set it up even before you set up your tests, and you can use it across all of your tests. You just need to do it one time.
Awesome. And then one thing I noticed again is, like, there are 4 goals that you've set up. And A/B test, you're optimizing for a single goal. As you said, with Kaj and I also agreed, free trial. We need it through the roof. That's what we want. As many people to try the free trial as possible. So then if we are so clear about the goal, why 4 goals?
Exactly.
It's not 2 or 3, it's 4. That's a lot.
So there are various reasons to set up multiple goals, and one here is that my primary motive was to measure if the number of clicks increased on that one button that I improved. And then I also wanted to judge its impact further down the funnel. So just to be sure that it was just not the clicks increasing, but actually people were filling the form and were signing up, I added a goal that was 2 steps down the funnel. And that's what is one.
So what is that goal?
It's free trial submissions. And if I navigate to that, you would see that it also shows a positive uplift, which means we're good so far. The changes that we've done on step 1 of the funnel are positively taken, like even 2 steps down.
So why do you have request demo submissions if you're just concerned about free trials?
That's because that was another value offering of the page. If you notice at the start, there were two CTAs on my nav bar, and the other one was request a demo. I wanted to measure the impact of the test on request a demo button too. if my free trials is going up, and I mean, it will happen that the demo requests will go down, but I wanted to know by how much, and that's what these two goals are doing. This helps me take a holistic look at the impact of making those changes, and then apply or then decide if I want to actually apply those changes on my website.
So basically, you broke the entire experience into 4 micro goals.
Right.
And you were measuring the test on all these 4, keeping one as your primary goal.
Right.
Right. Which is building top of funnel for the free trial page.
So I know you sneakily did something on this screen.
So what I did was I navigated to the compare mode, and I compared request demo submissions to free trial submissions.
Right.
And now it gives me a comparison of what was the impact, a positive impact on certain thing that I improved, and a negative impact
on something
I took the attention away. And now I have every data point that I need to take a call on whether to implement this test.
And if you apply segments, that will also apply on all the numbers, right?
Oh.
So you can actually go crazy with your slicing and dicing.
It has happened that, if you see the overall negative that you see here in request a demo can be positive just for Australian audiences, because they really don't care and they only want that demo first. So if my slicing and dicing suggests that, I should take that into account. Right? That should be one of the learnings and actionable, that what that audience set has to be treated differently.
Right, but segments is an insane word, because as you said, you used the word infinity before. There could be infinite segments.
Right.
So when should I know that I'm going a bit absurd with my segments, and I should just contain myself and just focus on, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6? How do I make that call? Because I can definitely see myself, creating as many segments as there are in the business.
That's true. Yeah. And so use your intuition here, and you will know that when you're analyzing to you have reached a level where the segment is completely meaningless. Right. I'll give you an example. Let's say you first of all slice by the location. So you say audiences in the US, and then you say also MacBook users. So far so good, not a problem at all, because the platform that you use this on does make a difference. But then you go on to add the browser language, the screen width, as well as one more maybe let's say a query parameter to be present on their landing page.
Right.
Now you definitely have created a very complicated segment, but if you take a look at it, it doesn't mean anything. That particular set of visitors do have those attributes in common, but using that and calling, and if you observe something there, let's say a 50% improvement, and that's going to be something that excites you a lot. Right. But you have to always understand that you have made the segment meaningless. And when this is a problem. If you slice and dice so much, you're going to end up with something that looks like legit, but
so I can always find a winner if I have to, if I want to.
Yeah. So it's better that you try and test out the segments. You do see that there's some amount of continuity to it,
right.
not just here but also in analytics, and use them as the regular segments that you want to slice and dice on.
Right. Awesome. So before I think we jump into the examples, I also wanted to show the view settings. I know we touched upon it. New with the reports, Anshul, if you can do the honors.
Right. So this is a new addition to the report, where you have the ability to customize the reporting dashboard according to what you like the most. It gives you options to customize layouts, fix on a default.
So you can have the graph first if you want, because a lot of people are very visual with their graphs. So,
so a lot of people think that, say that, and this is actually was a feedback from our customers, that to quickly look at the test report, the first thing I want to look at is a graph. Just quickly analyze where the performance are.
Also, if you're observing the test every day, you won't be concerned about the numbers. You would want a date range,
a trend
setting,
kind of,
and
not the
you want to compare it with both the variations.
And also, since we are on the point of looking at the test every day, I think that's one of the things that should
avoid peaking.
What basically this why does everyone say that you should avoid peaking? Why does everyone keep hammering on the fact that you should not look at your test result until there's a certain until you have reached a certain date? And simply because you form an opinion about it. You can think that, okay, last week variation 1 was performed better. How is it possible that this week we do 1? But whereas the coin toss example earlier, predicted that
with
there's a 3 in 5 chance that the coin is going to give out tails, which heads, which wasn't right.
Right.
So that's why you would not want to draw a conclusion too early on. But if you can resist that temptation, I think it's fine. Take a look at the number if you want.
Awesome.
So coming back to this, you can customize what you want to see first in your report, and then if it's the graph, no matter where the graph is, which graph you want to look at. There are also options in which you can customize if you would want the ranges to show up along.
So the Bayesian ranges that we talked about.
Yes.
Right.
So as you see in my report, I definitely want expected conversion rate to be represented as a range, and that's what it's shown on. There is a very cool feature that now I can choose which columns do I want to look at, so which metrics do I care about, and also customize the order using the drag and drop feature.
Right.
And here you see that I've eliminated absolute potential loss from my list, and that's because not because I don't report on this number, but I don't look at this number too frequently. So absolute potential loss is something that VWO uses on the back end to determine whether the loss associated with the variation, which is the variation's performance on its worst day.
Right.
So the loss associated with the variation has to be under a certain threshold, and that's what this number is used.
So the system is already taking that number into consideration. So trusting the system and using that to
so there's a benchmark which has been calculated on its own, and it's comparing it with that.
Right. Yeah, but if you want to see that, there are a lot of data-oriented marketers out there who would want to see the Bayesian ranges, who would want to see the absolute potential loss, and I think it'll be great to actually customize it for them. So if you open up the view settings, so actually I'll do that very quickly here. So let's say we're obsessed with numbers. So we go for ranges for the Bayesian ranges, absolute potential loss. I can also
add it.
Oh, you've actually moved it on top. And I also want to see the graph first. So if you do that, let's see what happens. There you go. So you have all the numbers that you need, and then the graph that we looked at, and the graph is showing first.
Right.
And this is at the user level, right?
Yeah.
So there may be different people in the team who interpret graphs differently, and they can customize.
So you and I can have completely different settings.
That's pretty cool.
Prakash and I can have completely different settings. So yeah, that's
awesome.
That's the power of the A/B testing report and what all you can do with it. Would you like to pick up some examples? We definitely
yes.
Let's do that. Which our customers were generous enough to help us with a few cases that they implemented.
Awesome.
And we have some analysis from them. So here's this is the first example where this is a talent recruitment website. This is where students can sign up and present make their portfolio and present themselves for a certain kind of jobs, and where recruiters from different organizations can also select to sign up and hire, and select to set up their organizations and hire or offer jobs using that platform.
So basically they have two type of audiences coming in. One is the job seekers, and the other one is like who are talent scouts.
Right.
And almost like a marketplace, right?
Almost like a marketplace. Yes.
Talent marketplace.
Talent marketplace. And the problem they had is now on the the mock here.
Just so the customers know that it's not, we do not have real screenshots,
right?
Because the customers ask for anonymity. This is not.
That's the best sketch Anshul can come up with of the website.
Yeah, right. So their homepage definitely had two sections. One was catering to students, the other one was to cater to recruiters. And the problem they had was that beyond this one first page, they had two extra steps. So one step and then another one after that, after which the students could reach a place where they would, let's say, sign up for an account, or recruiters would go on to create a profile for their company.
Makes sense.
And they wanted to eliminate those steps. So that's what this test was about.
So they essentially wanted, so I guess the hypothesis is that they want to increase the engagement of the traffic that is coming in, that is relevant, and then they want them to interact with these parts of the website and actually go to the form where they fill out or give their information to the website.
Yeah. So the hypothesis was that, as you mentioned, that if we cut down the number of steps that are involved in this entire funnel, we will get a higher amount of engagement. And they were measuring this by looking for how many people moved on to the step 2, and also, like we did, they measured the number of people that moved on to step 3. and further completed the entire flow. So the changes that they made apply to both students and recruiters, because this was the common change that was made on the website and the navigation flow itself. And what happened was, here's what their results look like. So
go to the next slide. Okay.
Once this test was implemented and it collected some data, it resulted in an overall improvement on the number of signups that they observed for recruiters.
Right.
So I missed out on what changes were there on variation 1 and what were on variation 2.
Oh, they were trying out different ways in which they would eliminate those steps.
Okay. So
yeah.
they
had a pop-up that it took certain information.
Right. And they had another way. They instead of a pop-up, I think moved the page a little bit, page structure a little bit, and incorporated those options right over there.
Okay.
So yeah, these were two different ways in which they were doing it.
Of the same pop-up experience.
Of the same number of steps that they wanted to reduce. And they definitely saw an increase.
So this was their primary goal, increase in recruiter signups?
Yeah, this was set up as primary goal. They definitely wanted to consider other goals as well, because in this case,
I think they taught us well about why to use multiple goals.
Also because they were catering to two different kinds of form layouts, so they wanted to check if one increases, the other one should have the same effect too. But if I move to the next slide, what we noticed, or what they noticed, was that there was a drop in number of students reaching the second step, which was
of the form that they had to complete.
Of the form that the students had to complete.
Right.
So definitely there was progress on the recruiter side, but students, even on step 2, they started seeing that the number of people that dropped off were higher than their baseline.
Right.
And then there was a drastic drop in the overall submits of forms when we analyzed this for students.
Both sides, like both sides of the segments?
No, just students.
Okay.
So both of these goals, the two screenshots that I showed you were for students.
So basically, if I have to summarize, the signups for the recruiters went up.
Right.
I think one variation gave us an improvement of about 10%. And then, but when it came to students, which is the second segment, on the second step of the form submission, or the second step of the form, there was a drop.
Yeah,
a 7% drop. Yeah, 7 to 8% drop.
Right.
And then on the submission side, there's a 50% drop.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So half the people signed up as double the people would have signed up if they would have just stuck with control. That's what this means. So how do we take a look at this test? Now the interesting bit is that there are two different kinds of audiences that are landing on the same page, and the test was looking at an average case. They wanted to, they saw an issue with their own number of, the navigation with their own website, and they thought of fixing it. Except at that point, even I wouldn't think of taking a different approach towards fixing this, the navigation for candidates and for the recruiters, which means that I would have implemented something similar and ended up with a result like this. Now, what does that mean, or how do we go about it? If I had to ask you, where does your intuition tell you?
So I think here, I think understanding the business is really important. What is more important? Because the marketplace, obviously, you have to increase both the numbers. You want the students who are looking for jobs on the platform, but you also want recruiters, because they're the people who are attracting the students.
Right.
And I think that is where the rub is, here. Like if recruiters are the ones that are attracting the students, and if that is what matters to my business, and I'm assuming maybe that is the case for them, and that's why they made the primary goal as increasing the number of recruiter signups. It makes sense. Like, they saw an 11% increase, but 50% drop in the student sign up. That means they're not realizing the value that is being generated by having high number of recruiters. So it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So I think understanding, at least the way I would look at it, would be where does my business stand at that point of time? What are we looking to do, or what are we looking to achieve? What matters to us, and what is this test, actually contributing to that business goal?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think what's important here is like, what is your risk appetite with which segment?
Right.
Like, you drastically change one experience to cater to another.
Right.
And you need to understand that what is the amount of risk appetite you have to maybe bring out such a change. So if you have a lower risk appetite, you might have shorten or maybe cut down on the number of visitors coming to that page or experiencing that and things like that. I mean, you should have like thought it through in that.
So I actually may not be a bad idea to actually like run another test.
Yeah,
I know those are not
right,
the words
right.
a lot of people want to hear.
But before you do that, let's think of the ways in which you can analyze what the problem was. First step is definitely to look at, and that's also what our client did, was to look at the recordings of everyone who they identified as a student. They notice that there's a problem with students, that they don't perceive the change as well.
Right.
So they wanted to find out why. And taking a look at their recordings, I think one of the reasons that they realized was that the decision making to select which category do they want to go to next was set on one page, which was the part of the original navigation. So that is an insight that they uncovered, but they weren't satisfied with just that. So they decided to run a survey only for students. How do they do that? They have two different sections on the website, one which definitely caters to students. So just on those pages, they targeted a survey where they simply went ahead and asked the students, what do you like or dislike about this page? And that survey is something that will give them actual insights into if there is any need of improvement for the flow that is followed by the students that land on this.
So I guess if we want to create another test, we really need to do our research.
Right.
And there's a lot of insights that are already available on the platform. So as you said, it definitely, like in this case, we would definitely see the difference in behavior of the students when in control, when they saw that, versus when they saw the variations. Are there any changes on the parts of the web page that they're interacting with, or maybe the session time goes on the lower side? So maybe looking at recordings, when do they decide they quit, or what information they were not able to find or click on and stuff like that. So that's great, understanding.
Even I would want to create a feedback loop in the test itself where I can basically see that all the people from the student side who are leaving the page and run a survey on exit intent immediately. Like we are coming out with all the report data from the A/B test and all that. We are at the same time parallelly we are generating insights about why people who are not converting, and what is the sentiment of.
Yeah, for sure. I think that would have all of these cases would definitely help them to do their analysis better this time, because now they know that these two different kind of segments react differently. And they can definitely capitalize on that information.
But the whole idea here is, like, from what I understand, what I'm getting as an insight is that, we think of test as, an outcome that we can implement in our business. But this feels like a journey. You know, the first step is to run this test, and then it opens up possibilities. I see the recruiter signing up more, but something else is being affected. Now, from a business perspective, I then look to kind of balance it out, depending, and this could go in a lot of different ways.
Classic marketplace example, right? I mean, any marketplace this would apply to. Let's take Amazon for that matter. Like one e-commerce store where not just sellers but also buyers are there. So who do you prioritize? What do you make your first experience, or who do you optimize your first experience for? And that's all this is about. And in this case, they have to do it for both, because for their business it does matter that at least in the states that they are in, they cater to both of these segments. So for them, they will have to dedicate a separate stream for both of these, because they could obviously have a different interaction way.
Cool.
Okay, so moving on. Here's another example where there was an e-commerce store. Where the first fold of the page was dedicated to showcasing the story behind creating that e-commerce store. Now, the first fold of the homepage is a prime real estate for an e-commerce website, and is definitely used for a lot of promotions and showcasing what's new.
The new product lines,
everything, right?
New category coming in,
and sometimes even stories around the brand.
Exactly. Now, if you lose on that real estate, and this customer really wanted to prioritize on telling their story, So they wanted to keep that, but the effect was that they were seeing that the sale, an actual sale that they ran on the website was not garnering a lot of interest.
Okay.
Which is an issue, right? Because you ran a sale, you're actually offering the same product for a little bit less price.
Looking for that revenue uptake.
Exactly.
Uptake.
Right. And having more customers than buying from you.
Right. And the frustration here is that you're not able to capitalize on that.
Right.
So how do they do it? They decided to put something that this mock demonstrates. They decided to put like a countdown timer, which told every visitor how much time there was left.
And there was, I think, this is very interesting for me also when I saw it. They had like something on sale all the time with a timer attached right on the homepage.
Right.
So every time you go, you have some exciting new item.
Yeah.
On discount. All the time. This is very kind of radical and I think very bold of a store to do that.
And aren't you thinking the clock is ticking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want you
to have like 24 hours or X amount of hours for making that purchase.
For making that purchase. So that's what they want.
And I think the brand is also a bit aspirational in nature. Like people want to buy from this brand and like making that first purchase.
Right.
From what I saw in the store, like making that first purchase is probably like very cool or very exciting for a lot of people. So when they see this, I guess it moves some feathers.
Right. So let's take a look at how this test did. Any guesses?
I think this would have been better.
I think
you are right. There was an overall positive impact on purchases, not just on total number of checkouts, but also on the total amount of
My concern was like obviously you give a discount and you're running it for that, like you're running it all the time. Will that impact the revenue per conversion that you have? So you may increase the number of the number of orders that you're getting, but if my my margins are going down, which is a very important aspect for an e-commerce store, that would be a concern.
Right. So that does happen when you offer a discount. The average amount of dollars spent might go less. That is one of the risks that you're taking. But if you take a look at this test and you focus on the second part of the slide, you will see that this is a revenue metric, and you will see that the expected revenue per visitor went up
by 39 cents.
By 39 cents. But the expected revenue per conversion went down. Right.
Just to be sure, like what are these two different metrics?
So if you would like to visualize it, just think of the total amount of revenue that you collected from a variation and divide that by total number of visitors in that variation. You will end up with a similar number that is represented by revenue per visitor over here.
And expected revenue per conversion is whatever transactions that were completed. What is the revenue number per transaction?
Right.
So the denominator just changes in both the cases.
Yes. So since there was an improvement in the total number of people that actually purchased from them, which means the conversion rate was higher, the loss that you might think would be there because the expected revenue per conversion seems to be less was offset simply by increasing revenue per visitor and increasing the conversion rate. So in turn, the total amount of revenue that they generated from variation 1 was higher than that.
So I have 6% more purchases or more transactions, but I'm losing about 0.5%, like less than $1, so I guess, 0.5% on revenue per conversion. That is a great deal, if I have to improve.
And also, if I can think of a follow-up test, is so maybe I don't know how much discount they were offering. So maybe if they were offering 18% discount, might not try the same offer with a 15 or a 16% discount, and that delta of 2% from 18 to 16, that's a revenue growth for you.
Definitely. So if you have tried such a test and ended up with a net negative, you might want to, as Utkarsh mentioned, play around with the amount of discount that you're offering, so that you can achieve such an offset that they were able to.
Counterintuitively, actually, what if you increase the discount? Because I feel like why I'm saying that, because expected revenue per conversion hasn't gone down by much. So but the number of transactions have gone up. So maybe counterintuitively I look for that sweet spot. Maybe increase that discount a bit more. And if I have more space to kind of play around with the revenue per conversion, play around with that.
For sure.
And you never know, maybe the equation goes into your side.
That just happened with me yesterday.
Hey, nothing wrong in being greedy. It's all right.
That just happened with me yesterday. Like I was, it was my sister's birthday yesterday, and I was thinking of ordering something from Amazon, and they have this offer on a few things, like a fixed discount. So I have this budget of spending $80 for buying something, and I saw that I was almost buying 4 stuff in $65, and I still have those $15 spare. So I started a couple of more things, though I ended up spending 90. But yeah, that additional discount, was kept me excited to buy all those stuff. So yeah, I think that's it.
So here, I think that's exactly what is happening. I think people are probably buying the discounted product. That eases their friction of buying their first product, but then they also buy other things. And that's helping out the store really well. So I would definitely play around with the discount number and take it either sides and see what happens as a test.
Okay. So there was one other interesting insight that I would like to share on this one, and that's when they segmented this test for new visitors, they found that the improvement numbers were through the roof.
Right? It's awesome.
It's so the
30%.
The visitors. Another way to look at it is if some people, let's assume
Christmas came early for this business.
and when something like that happens, you can like think of so many ideas to target them again, because now they are like they have become your first customer.
No longer the new visitors, but the result, the conclusion that we can draw from this one is that the returning visitors, although they probably would have also contributed positively, but the returning visitors were not as
excited,
or did not create as big an impact as the new ones.
Probably it was in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it could be exactly the opposite direction, and that's because the returning visitors are familiar with the website, and they don't mind.
They know how much discount to provide on regular days.
But the new visitors definitely needed a hint that there was a discount going on the first fold of the homepage, which nudged them towards this. So
interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what.
But again, like if we have to, I think it's great that they actually saw it through the lens of new visitors, because returning visitors, then you need to keep your brand alive with the returning visitors, and then if it's impacting there, that's a concern. Like if I were in the business, this would make me extremely happy, because I'm getting a lot more exposure to new customers, new visitors. But I would definitely be concerned about the returning visitors. I still need to maintain my brand, because these are the people who tell other people, hey, check this brand out.
Right? Forward-looking approach about everything.
Right.
Yes. Unfortunately, we won't be able to look at that standard. But yes.
But if you are an online store, have run, validated all such hypotheses, I think these are good ideas.
But again, coming to the inside, I think segmenting the data and understanding how different segments that are important for your business is like absolute key in making that business decision based on these numbers. That's a conclusion I can definitely draw.
Absolutely. So asking the right set of questions that you should be concerned about when you run an A/B test, and that can only happen when you explore more and more. So don't shy away from experimenting. You will end up developing an intuition about it, and you will have more and more confidence about what to do with the numbers.
Almost like you need to put your Sherlock hat on,
and
go into visitor recordings, go into heat maps, dig into segments.
Validate some hypotheses. If they are working for you, just keep iterating on that.
Create hypotheses and create more and more tests.
Put a timer, remove a timer, add, subtract, discounts. There's an n number of things you can do.
A good way to form hypotheses is when you have an idea, try to validate that with already existing data. If you can if you can validate that as a problem, then sure, spending time on fixing that is definitely great. So a lot of people ignore past tests when they're looking for this data, and I think that's something that you should never do. So if you cannot just keep a track of all the learnings in one single place, which you should definitely.
Actually, when you're talking about learnings, if we go back into the interface of the reports, I do not know if it's, so you see like add learnings. So we have made this like extremely prominent in the new reports, and this is key. Because you have people who change from one year to another. And it's important to keep your learnings in place. What was the reason that you set up a hypothesis? That's in the plan layer. But once you have a result, adding learnings to this test would be critical, so that the future tests or the future experiments you run, they are kind of dipped into a lot of insights from the experiments that you already have, or the learnings you already have.
Absolutely.
In the system.
Very important to close that loop.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think we covered most of these things, but just to reiterate, I think this is important to mention that there are a few things I should definitely avoid while evaluating your A/B tests. And first point is that there should be at least a minimum number of visitors and a minimum number of conversions in your test.
Is there a sweet spot?
So we can actually trust our reports.
So VWO implements VWO implements that at 1500 visitors per test and 25 conversions per variation before calling it.
So our notifications are pretty trustworthy. We are doing all the hard work in the background. We're looking at absolute potential loss. We're looking at CTPC, probability to beat baseline. And we're also looking at the visitors and the conversions that are happening. So we're taking a lot of these numbers into consideration and coming up with an estimated duration for the test. And we have actually automated that in the new reports. So you don't actually have to manually put in a number. So we are doing all the crunching on our side, and you just have to focus on getting the insights and getting that right.
Yeah. And then we spoke about meaningless segments. Do not trust segments that
don't kill yourself with segments.
Also, if you segment something, so let's say Australia plus iPhone users, and if it ends up with a number such as 50 visitors and 7 conversions, again something that I'd be very I would not account or even look at that. Just move away from
also
it.
Or maybe run a test. Like if you think like it's showing you something, do some analysis and test it out. If you feel like Australia is performing, or you think Australia could perform better, might as well test it out instead of actually taking it as an absolute truth.
What is the reliable segments quantity? Like, is there a quantity of segment like which I can rely on?
Actually, I mean, I don't think I'll be able to put a number to the number of characteristics that you should restrict yourself to. But yeah, as I said, as you go, you would know that you've gone beyond a point, and now you're just adding characteristics.
So I think in our case, for example, like taking an example that we had. So on that page, if most of the traffic, let's say, is from the US, but if we are also really concerned about the segment from India and like Asia and Australia, if we can actually focus on that segment itself and probably create 2 tests, one for the US audience, one for that audience, and make sure that we have valid results for both, and there's enough traffic to make those calls. So we can actually separate it out if segments are that important, and we know that before the test. But if you're applying segments later on, only trust them if there's enough traffic. The probability to beat control is extremely high, that you can actually trust the numbers. If it can also direct you in the right direction, but I think we should test it out. I think that's the outcome.
For sure. So small numbers can make you think that the variations do better, where the numbers are just too small. That's what you need to understand. Don't call your test too early. It's definitely something that you should do. Don't make presumptions about the test even before you end up at a level where the platform is calling a test for you. So do all of that. And last is that multiple tests can overlap.
I cannot believe you left it for that last point. This is so important.
But we want to focus on the report today and not setup. But it's something.
We need to have another webinar session just to talk about that.
Okay, 1 minute, but you need to tell them.
So this is definitely about unintended consequences. If you have more than one test running on your website, it might happen that your tests, the bias from one test creeps into the other one. So a visitor who becomes part of one of the experiences, test number 1, may have a reflex, or may react.
So may see like variation 1 of the first test, and may see variation 3 of the second test,
and that might be bad for you. And that overlap is something that you should always be wary of. There are 2 ways in which you can eliminate any kind of issues with this. One is either first of all, you need to answer the question, do my tests really overlap? And if they do, the visitors between my tests, do they overlap? If they do, does it matter? So, for example, if one test targets the home, the navigation bar across the website, and the other one is just one small change on, let's say, one of your blog pages, and there can be overlapping visitors between them. They might not be many, but there can be.
But what if there is an overlap, like both of those changes may lead to may have an impact on the conversion rate to the product pages, for example, for an e-commerce store. So if they overlap, what do you do there?
So you need to identify what kind of metric are you adding in that test. So if both the tests are working towards the same goal, then at the end of it, you'll never be able to tell which test exactly impacted the goal. If the goal were, if you see an improvement, you'll never be able to say that my test A actually helped in this improvement, or my test A helped 60% and my test B helped 40%. You'll not be able to do that.
What's the solution?
The solution is that you either run these tests one by one, or you ensure that there are no overlapping visitors. And you can very easily do that. Like, for example, sometimes you may have segments such as you want to run one test for Australian customers and one for US customers. That in itself will not have an overlap, except for that one guy who may fly from US to Australia and then use your website again. But no, don't worry about that. The other way is,
so I think we have a feature called mutual exclusive that you can turn on. So if I think it'll just show one test to one visitor. You can create groups amongst multiple tests, and that could handle that.
So this feature allows you to group these tests, and even if you have like both the tests targeted to US audience, it'll ensure that whatever tests
from a hygiene perspective, I guess it's really important. Like if there are 2 or 3 tests running, probably put them in a mutually exclusive group and make sure that one user sees one experience, and they're not getting biased by another.
So that's exactly what it'll do. It'll just ensure that out of the group, if the visitor has seen one test became a part of one experience, it just excludes it from every other. So ensures that at the end you always have a test visitor set which has only seen one out of those 3 tests, and you end up.
So it does not hamper your entire experience if you have multiple tests running either across your funnel or.
So there is no bias. You can actually trust the numbers. All right.
Definitely something that should have been.
I think we've pretty much checked. We've wrapped up the session. Let's open the session for Q&A.
Oh, sure.
Guys, feel free to ask questions to us now.
Did we exceed our time?
I think we.
Sorry, guys, but it's a lot.
So I see a question. It's from Bhargavi. She has, would you suggest iteration on previous done A/B tests? This question came up when we were discussing about.
So can you repeat the question? What was it?
Yeah, the question says that would you suggest iterating on previously done tests? Absolutely. Absolutely. You should. I mean, there is, even if you might not want to test the exact same thing because that's not something, but if you've done some tests and if you later uncover that there could be, some issues with it, or you have a different angle of looking at the same hypotheses, you should definitely test that out as well.
And you can analyze, right? You can go back and look at the segments that are important for your business. You can look at the heat maps that are there, and that could give you a lot of insights. So I think the part is that, okay, you can trust the numbers, but there's a story that you need to kind of unfold that the numbers may not tell you. And then again, like, sorry for using this expression again, you need to wear your Sherlock hat again and then dig deeper into the insights that the platform has. So heat maps, visitor recordings, looking at the segments, and use that to create ideas to test.
Yeah,
that's it.
I don't see any more questions coming in.
Okay,
guys, if you have any questions, like, this is the time.
By the way, if you have, if you need any help interpreting any reports,
we would be happy to help.
Yeah, we would be happy to help. So you can buzz us right now or even after this session. And we would be more than happy to get on a call and discuss it with you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Okay.
We close the session?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thanks everybody for attending the session. Thank you guys, the product team, for making it a success.
This is definitely fun.
We'll come back again with another session. I think we have another one coming up on surveys. We have Contorian. Mark, who is the Spock from Contorian, will be here, not here, like he'll be visually here to do a session with us on how you can be creative about surveys and gather feedback from your customers, from your buyers, from your visitors on your website. Stay tuned. Oh, I see your questions. What are your views on running multiple A/B tests on the same page?
Yeah, so multiple A/B tests on same page will, I mean, as I said, if they're both working towards the same goal, let's say you are a business like VWO and you're optimizing that more number of people should move on to either the product page, let's say for that.
Right.
And you make two changes on the same page. One is you swap out your old headline for a new one where it generates more entry. And second is that when you like one fold down, when you list down certain features of the product, you list them in a different way. Let's say these are two different kinds of experiences that you create, but both of them are working towards the same goal.
Right.
Now, this is where you will not be able to answer the question that if I saw a 5% change in my number of people who navigated to my product page, what can I attribute that change to? Both of them, one of them, what exactly happened?
It gets very confusing.
Yeah.
And that's where wherever you see confusion, your bias would creep in.
Right.
And you're like, okay, this variation probably performed better. And then that's not always the case. Yeah.
So I think the best way here would be to create both of these tests, put them in a mutually exclusive group, and then run them to ensure that there are zero overlapping visitors between them. So one visitor will only see one experience and will react to it, and you will be measuring that.
So you can do that in the creation phase. So for example, when you're creating a test, I think on the third or the second last step, on the last step, there's a checkbox for mutually exclusive groups, and you can put all the tests that you think are running on the same page within that group, and that could work. And you could also do that, if let's say you have 2 or 3 tests running right now, you can just go into the settings and create a mutually exclusive group there. So if they're, as Anshul is saying, if they're both working towards the same goal, not a bad idea to put them in a mutually exclusive group.
Also, if you have multiple variations or you have good number of traffic coming to that page, maybe you can try the MVT approach, where you can create multiple variations of that and make them live, so that the multiple variations get being pushed to the main site and keep giving you like what are different things happening there.
If you intend that overlap, if you want that visitors who have seen experience 1 in test A, experience 2
and
in test
you could in certain cases.
You could, in that case, I think Karsh is right. You may want to create a multivariate
You want to
test.
see the impact of multiple changes on the visitor group. So if that is the case, yes. Go ahead.
So multivariate testing is nothing but the ability where you are able to create combinations out of all the different kind of changes you make on the page. So every change is treated like one new instance, and all combinations of them are created and they're tested at once.
So Rodrigo, I think you got your answer there. We have another question coming up. Oh, in the last minute. Amazing. So Mel has this question.
Right.
Mel is asking if you had a test with many variations, can you disable variations if they are performing badly, or start a new test without them?
Yeah, sure. So I think what Mel is trying to ask is, in mid-test, you identify that there's one variation that is absolutely worse, and you definitely want to get rid of it. At that point, is it better to
clone a test or start it again, or
start it again? I think you should just disable it at the moment and continue with the results that you have for the others. What would happen is that a set of visitors have had that experience. That's
right.
That's something that you will have to that will be in the test, but
So you can, I guess you can, but you could also clone it. Because let's say if a variation had a lot of traffic, then I feel like you'll have to still run it longer to kind of trust the numbers, because you want the engine to kind of learn the new behavior of the visitors, because they'll be redirected to the different variations. So you can take a call there. I think if you're okay with interpreting the numbers, that may include the numbers of the variations that you have disabled. Then disable the variations. But if you want pure unadulterated numbers on your sheets that you would also want to share, let's say with your stakeholders, I would highly recommend actually cloning a test and making sure it's a clean test. Because when you're sharing it with a stakeholder, you don't want
to be any bias
exactly. But if it's not that big of a test, like it's something that you're looking from a perspective of a quick win, then disable a variation and go ahead.
I would actually follow that approach, because with other variation being live, we're also taking a hit on the number of people seeing that variation, which we recently closed out of.
Right. So I think again it comes, it boils down to your testing intuition and what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Okay. I think we are way over time. So guys, if you have any more questions, just write to us. We'll be happy to reply to those your questions over email.
Yeah.
I think let's close the session.
Yes. And by the way, the new reports are live. So if you have any feedback on that, reach out to us. We'll
please go ahead.
Excited to talk to you about it.
Write to us on Intercom, give us a call, write us a tweet about it, whatever. We'll be there to answer. Okay. Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you for doing this session with us. Thank you audience for attending it.
Thank you.
We'll be coming back very soon with the survey webinar. I just discussed we're doing it with Contorian, and Mark, who's the SPOC from Contorian, would also be participating in the session, and we're discussing about creative ways how you can run surveys.
They have a couple of very exciting insights.
Exactly.
A couple of exciting
I was
actually
reading what Mark has to share, and trust me, guys, you'll have.
I think it was very insightful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.